Oh, from New York, New York, you are listening to Extra Time, driven by Continental Tire from the AT&T 5G Virtual Studios. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, David Goss, Charlie Davies.
Charlie
It is
Davies.
that time of year, baby. It's
Davies.
Charlie's time. The weather is cold. Every kick of the ball matters.
Gloves on the hands.
Exactly. If you got the short sleeves, you are really about it. The Audi 2021 MLS Cup playoffs are here. We've been waiting for almost 2 weeks, and we've had a distraction. CONCACAF, the Octagon, it took our attention away, but our attention is back. All the way to MLS Cup, less than a month, 13 games left, 14 teams alive, one MLS Cup champion to be crowned at the very end. It is win and go home time. We got a big show. Zarek Valentin will be with us to preview the Western Conference. We're going to look at the Eastern Conference. We're going to do our Darkhorses. We're going to look at the odds from BetMGM, the favorites as it stands ahead of the first kick. But let's just get it started with some hype. I just want to feel it from you guys. Charlie, you've been here. You've done this. You've almost lifted the Philip F. Anschutz trophy. We don't have to bring that back up. What does this time of year, what do the MLS Cup playoffs mean to you?
There's nothing bigger than hoisting the MLS Cup in the air with your teammates, knowing that all the hard work you put in before the season, in preseason, during the season, all pays off for that moment. I just remember, in the fall, I'm from New England. This is, this is the season that everything happens. It's magical from being a youth to high school to college. Now playing for the New England Revolution, we felt like we had a strong team that we really were in a position to bring the first MLS Cup home to New England because every game matters. We were in a rhythm, in the zone. And so we really felt that this was our tournament. This was our postseason. And it felt that way up until Robbie Keane's injury, extra time winner.
Until it didn't feel that way, unfortunately.
Until it didn't feel that way. But this is what players dream of, this run right now. Yes, the regular season, was good, supporter shield. But at the end of the day, it means nothing. It's what you do right now from this moment on. Can you get that trophy? And for New England, they realize everything that happened is great, but it doesn't mean anything when it comes to winning MLS Cup. So I think for all these teams, they look at it as a clean slate. Although the teams that are coming into this hot and the confidence is super high, they typically have the edge.
90 minutes. That's it. In years past, we've talked about home and away and the tactics that go into that and all the preparations and how do you get it done this time of year? Well, it's pretty simple now. You win. If you win, you will move on. If you win enough times, you will get to MLS Cup. If you did well enough in the regular season, you will host MLS Cup. And if you host MLS Cup, it's not universal, but you got a real good chance of making history. And if you make history, it's something they can never take away from you, Dave. That's it, man. It's your cup. It's your year. It's your moment. It's something your fans can crow about until the end of the time. It's something that players will cherish until the end of time. Yeah, I mean, this is it.
It's how you get a statue built, right? Charlie talking about that game. What's the name? One name that gets mentioned, Robbie Keane. And this has been a star-driven league at times, but we sit down a week ago and we try and go through our best 11s, and you're 5 deep with star players who have quality that maybe we've never seen in this league before. And when you think of great playoff moments, you think of the great players carrying their teams in those huge moments. You think of Nico Lodero, right? You think of Robbie Keane. You think of Landon
Carlos
Donovan.
Ruiz.
You think of Joseph Martinez, Miguel Almiron. You think of huge stars. And so what's exciting to me is every team has one. And you've got Reynoso versus Sebastian Blanco. You've got Hani Mukhtar in an MVP race. You've got Damir Kreilach. The last team to get in the playoffs has a guy who's got 16-9, scored a 95th minute winner. Charlie wants to talk about confidence and flow. Like, Damir Kreilach right now feels like he could probably fly if he wants to. So I'm excited to see these players go up in these big moments. These players carry their teams. And then you're talking 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, statues. And getting your face carved into your field for the final game of the regular season. And all these moments and all the history that comes and the tradition, those are built out of what we're about to see over the next 6 weeks.
And it's the stars, but it's also the players that become stars in these moments, right? It's playoff die run. It's all the guys that were sort of bit players and then had their moment and then they weren't anymore. I just like it because the margins are slim. Don't look away. Don't get on Twitter and start scrolling around. Don't text your friend. Don't go get a snack. Don't go to the restroom. Time it out because you might miss something. You might miss Rodrigo Schlegel saving PKs as a center back and sending the entire city of Orlando into raptures. You might miss Wando in the 90+7 sending it to extra time and PKs against Sporting Kansas City just last year. Svensson 90+3 last year against Minnesota to go to MLS Cup. Stephen Fry pawing the ball out of the goal in MLS Cup. Roman Torres getting it done from the spot. Double posts. Hurricane Sandy blizzards. Ben Olsen saying, we got to play this game. It not having. You can't hold us back. Come on. I mean, Toronto, Montreal, the lines that moved. The whole damn series, the Cry Out Karate Kick. I mean, you could just go on and on and on of all these iconic moments that mean so much to us as fans of Major League Soccer, but mean even more to the fans of those teams, the supporters that were there for it, that braved the conditions. You know, go throw it back again. 2013 MLS Cup. How many times have we talked about the cold and the Aurelian Kalin tackle and Jimmy Nielsen hobbling and trying to do his and winning MLS Cup and painting the wall like. There's just so much that goes into these games, the memories, the legacy, just the quality of soccer. You can't miss it. There's only 13 games left. Like, we've gone through the hundreds of games to get to this point, and the show, we're all about watching them. We love them. That's what we're about. But this is the payoff, man. This is what it all comes down to, as Charlie said. This is what players dream about, that run. Can you make it? What's the difference between doing it and not doing it and going home early? The Audi 2021 MLS Cup playoffs. They start Saturday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Union Red Bulls. Right after that, keep it locked. MLSsoccer.com and the MLS app will stream these live, and we will have pregame shows at halftime, shows between. We'll keep it rolling all throughout the day, straight into Kansas City, Vancouver. That's fascinating. Vanni Sartini already said, and we'll get to this in depth, that they're going to win. I mean, he said that in like a decision day haze afterwards, but he still said it, which is incredible as we talk about bulletin board material. And then on Sunday, another doubleheader, New York City, Atlanta, 3 p.m. Eastern on ABC and ESPN Deportes. ABC, fire up the antenna. I mean, however you got to do this. You can watch. It's available to you. Portland, Minnesota at 5:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, ESPN Deportes. By the way, on that day, outside of the playoffs, we have a Canadian Championship.
Yeah.
So a CCL spot is at stake. And then Tuesday, another doubleheader. Thanksgiving game. Revs are in action on the 30th, and it just rolls on and on and on all the way to MLS Cup. It's going to be a beautiful thing. If you're not already there, the Audi Bracket Challenge, get it locked in. Just go get it down. Put something on paper. You can change it all the way up to the first kick of that first game in Chester. We have an Extra Time League. The link will come out this evening on Twitter. Go click it. Once you have your bracket filled out, it'll just enter you into the league. You don't have to do anything. Very, very easy on that side. And as I said, Saturday, if you don't have a way to watch these games, if you're thinking, you know what, I don't know if I can get Univision. I don't think I have 2DN. That's not something that I know how to access. Well, you have a phone. You have a computer. You're listening right now. MLSsoccer.com, the MLS app. 2 p.m. Eastern, we'll start the pregame. 2:30, it'll switch right over into the games. You can watch them for free on MLSsoccer.com and the MLS app to get these Audi 2021 MLS Cup playoffs started. Okay, real quick, last little housekeeping. MLSsoccer.com, Sam Jones, bandwagon guide. Check it out. Joel Rowley's got the playoff X Factors. We're going to talk about this in a second. Ezra Hendrickson is rumored to be the next head coach of the Chicago Fire. That is really, really big news, and we're excited about that. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. And make sure, if you haven't already, go check out our Continental Tire Awards from Monday. You referenced the best 11s, Dave. We have 5 of them. We have awards from all throughout the league that, the official awards just don't cover. And we also had our Octagon reaction from Wednesday night. Wednesday? Was it Tuesday night? Yeah,
Ice Tekka, baby.
Recorded Wednesday morning. It'll feel like you're pulling on a velvet blazer as you listen to that show. It'll just envelop you in class, like one Charlie Davies, and of course the call-up had Matt Doyle. So 2 cats and a bunch of songs from Broadway. Check it out. Let's get into it. The big storylines when it comes to the Audi 2021 MLS Cup playoffs, it's who's going to win it. And I went and checked it out. BetMGM sent these out, the odds right now. And no surprise here, the lowest odds, so to speak, the Revs, plus 300. The highest odds are the Vancouver Whitecaps at plus 2,800, and then everybody else in between. Who to you outside the Revs, or is it the Revs, and it's just that simple, is the favorite? Charlie, is it Revs 1? And if it is, who's 2, who's 3? Who do you think realistically at the end of this dance is going to be the one standing?
Realistically, I think Revs are 1 because they had the best season, a regular season in history. So I think when you look at this team, the amount of game changers, like Goss is saying, you look at Carlos Heel, Gustavo Bo, Adam Buxa, who should be fit and healthy, and Tajon Buchanan. Those are 4 players who individually can change the game at any moment, any minute. So essentially, you're looking at your game changers. And you have Matt Turner in goal, right? So for me, that is the reason why they are the favorites for MLS Cup. But we all know the favorite, it's almost like it's even that much harder to win MLS Cup because of what you've done in the regular season. Everyone has to play at their very best to beat you, and you have this big target. And then you also have to deal with, not that this team will, but typically when you win the regular season, it's almost like, we got that off our back. Right. And there's like a little sense of relaxation just because you've already achieved so much throughout the regular season. Not that I think that's going to apply for the Revolution, but that can play a little bit in the subconscious. So I do think that the Revs are one. Now, if the Revs don't win, I look at the Eastern Conference because I do feel the Eastern Conference is a little stronger than the Western Conference this year. I know
Watch
that
out.
hurts. I know
Watch
that
out,
hurts
Twitter. Did you hear that? All the people that are constantly in my mentions. He said it. That's what he said.
I do think a little bit stronger. I think New York City FC would be a strong contender to win just because I feel that right now, the way that Tati Castellanos is playing, he's playing at a super high level. They've been together for so long. The playoffs has almost been their Achilles heel. That maybe they have just the right amount of experience combined with some youthful injections into the squad that they could kind of get over the hump. Now in the Western Conference, Seattle, Portland, I don't think Kansas City is in that group.
Ooh. Why?
The 3 losses to end the season. I think Salt Lake is going to be a real difficult task for Seattle, but I think if they do get by Salt Lake, that they're just a better team when they're matched up against Sporting Kansas City. I just think that Sporting Kansas City, they've just finished the season not in the right manner for me.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about that Vancouver KC match in depth with Zarek here in a little bit, so we'll dig in. On the odds here, just saying, BetMGM, this is how they have it set up right now. For NYCFC, you got plus 1250, so they're sort of in the middle of all this right now. And then Sporting KC plus 650, Saddle plus 525, Rapids plus 625. And by the way, opening day, the Rapids were plus 5,000, and so were Nashville SC. That's crazy. They're now down to 625 and 1150. Who for you outside the Revs, Dave? Like if you had to pick one team on the spot, one team,
Seattle.
Who's it going to be? Seattle?
Yeah, it's easy for me. I think to Charlie's point about the quality of the East, it makes it more likely that Seattle can make MLS Cup. And there's a decent chance that they could host it as well if the Revs don't get to MLS Cup. And then the Revs have this, which is they did it last year in the playoffs. And Seattle has this, which is they've done it every year in the playoffs. And so understanding what's needed in these moments, understanding how to win, the depth of pieces that Seattle has used over the course of this year to continue to win, even if Nico Ladero isn't 100%, even if Jordan Morris isn't 100%, they probably still feel like they should win every game they're in, and they probably have belief that they can get to MLS Cup. So Seattle, to me, is an easy pick outside of the Revs.
So the big storylines here are obviously the break for both the Revs and the Rapids. Charlie, the Revs don't play until the 30th. That's 12 days from today, I believe. That's 23 days.
That's a long time.
Since decision day. James Hargrove hit us up and said, do you think the first-round bye helps or hurts Colorado or New England? Would you like to see that first-round bye changed? If so, what would you change it to? That question is a little bit, that's even too big for us in this moment. We got to focus on the here and now. Do you think Bruce is doing everything he needs to make this right? I mean, I saw a little snippet maybe that Andrew Farrell was at Gillette. Maybe that means there was a practice game that happened here recently, or maybe just a run-through. I don't know. Maybe some marketing photos. Could be anything. Like, does it feel to you like in New England, the way Bruce is handling it, that it's not going to be an issue, or is it inevitable that it will be somewhat of an issue? We saw what the Union did last year. They didn't come out. They had the bye. They came out flat.
Well, what we do know is that Bruce Arena is going to do everything he can to make sure that this team is ready to go. Now, is it going to be an issue? Absolutely. It's 3 weeks. You can't replicate playoff scenarios in training. I mean, you can do exhibition games, but that is not the same as regular season matchups with everything on the line, where you got to give everything for 90 minutes. Now, you can try as much as you can, but it's never going to be the same. And we've seen throughout history in MLS Cup that teams who typically are on a run because they're playing more often always have an advantage against a team who's been rested. And their rest is good 1 week, but 3 weeks? I mean, for me, that's too much. And I think all the players would agree that that's just a little too much for them. But in this case, it helps Adam Buxa get healthy, so he's back on the pitch, and that's a big part of the Revolution's attack. So now you have Gustavo Bo and Adam Buxa who set the tone, because those are your two strikers. So I think for the Revolution, they're going to be as ready as they possibly can, and they're going to be playing against a team, either New York City FC or Atlanta, and it's going to be a tough challenge either way. But they do have the home field advantage, so that plays a big part of their chances to have success in this run.
2 years
Same with the Rapids, by the way. I think the Rapids, and I think both sides are like, man, how did we get stuck with NYCFC Atlanta or Portland or Minnesota? Like, you got the 1 seed, you got the bye, but I guess that's just this time of year. Like, there's no patsies.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to walk in and you feel like you're a huge favorite in any way.
Although I do like their matchup against Portland. So I don't actually hate that setup for them even more maybe than against an SKC or Vancouver, which would be what potentially would have come on the other side. I will say 2 years ago, NYCFC had the bye as the 1 seed. They traveled to Chicago to play a fake game, a scrimmage, whatever you want to call it, against the Fire on the road to keep the team together and flowing. They obviously lost to Toronto in that opening game. And then last year, only the East had buys, and both teams that played in the playing game, the Revs in Nashville, they won their second game. So to Charlie's point about momentum and about that feeling, it has been evident that it has worked against teams at times over the last few years. Now, I think that the Revs, because, again, of the experience they had last year and the style of team they are, they won't be affected in the same way. And then you're looking at a team where you say, if they get through that first round that they play, they're 2 games away from MLS Cup at home. And now everyone's back on even playing field.
I mean, they're 2 games away from winning MLS Cup at home.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's it. You just win one more game, you're in Cup, you're hosting it. I guess that is the benefit. Yeah, you got to figure out how to make that buy, that weight pay off. But once you pay it off, you're right there. You're on the brink. Here's an interesting question from Nope, which is also at MLS Retweets. I don't know what that is. It's an anonymous account, but it's interesting. Which teams can get to the conference final or MLS Cup and not win and it be a success? Like, who doesn't have to win this thing and who does? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious at the top that if the Revs don't win, if Seattle don't win just because of their expectations and their seeding, I think if Sporting Kansas City don't win, and I would say less or so for the Eastern Conference, 2 and 3 in Philadelphia and Nashville, like for those top 3 teams, it is a disappointment if they don't get there and win. But
Philly's a tough one because Philly's been in so many finals that they haven't won. But also, if you had told me before this season that Philly was in MLS Cup, I would have been pretty surprised. And I would have said that's a great season to continue the project that they are doing. So I don't know that I totally agree with Philly, but I get the point. On the flip side with the Rapids, I think it's similar, where it's like, look at the odds, but also if you're in MLS Cup, you don't know how often you're going to get back. So you don't want that opportunity to be missed. And I think that's kind of the give and take with some of these teams. There's a chunk of teams in the playoffs where this feels like they're still on the ascension, and there are some teams that feel like they're at the peak or on the way down. And the ones that are on the peak or on the way down, if they don't win and they get that opportunity, that's a huge loss. And I think that's something where the fan bases can tell, and you'll be a little bit upset. If Portland gets MLS Cup and doesn't win, we don't know if Sebastian Blanco's back. We don't know how much Valeri can give you. We don't know how good Niashgoda will be next year. Like, there are a lot of question marks around that team that I think if you get that opportunity, you can't let it go.
Yeah, and I would say for the Revs, they've been to MLS Cup 5 times,
Yeah.
five L's. And this would be the second MLS Cup at Gillette, right? So you think about how the stars have to align. I mean, this club goes on a record-setting regular season, and now they have the chance to play at Gillette Stadium for an MLS Cup if they're able to do it. I mean, think about the pressure that these players have. And I think that's what plays into the importance of this first game between New York City FC and Atlanta. That's going to be their toughest game, playing the winner of that. It's not going to be the conference finals. It's not going to be MLS Cup. It's going to be this first game coming off a 3-week break. And, I look at, some of the other teams. You look at Seattle, who's used to being in the final. Like, if they get to the conference finals and they lose, that's not the end of the world for this organization, for this fan base.
Don't tell Anders that.
They're so consistent. Whereas the Revs, they're not used to being in the MLS Cup final, and they're certainly not used to having it and hosting it. So this is one of those opportunities that you have to take advantage of.
Man, I can't wait till Atlanta comes out of that portion of the bracket and just blows Charlie up. Charlie's here, all NYCFC Revs, your two favorites. There's only one team that could ruin that, and Atlanta's just going to roll it. It's going to be Barco. 2 hat tricks to open up the playoffs.
Good thing that's a pretty quiet fan base when it comes to feedback for things that they don't particularly love. How about this dark horse, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of Philadelphia Union New York Red Bulls, because that's the opening game at 2:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. MLSsoccer.com, the MLS app, Univision Turriene. Who's your dark horse? Ethan Foley hit us up. He says it has to be a 5 through 7 seed in each conference, most likely to make a surprise run to the final. He did the research. Only 3 teams have done this in the last decade. And then Stefan had the same idea. Which lower seed, 5 and below, has the best chance of making a run to MLS Cup? Who is your team, Dave? Who's your dark horse?
I'm going to stick with Vancouver Whitecaps. It's all vibes, baby.
Andiamo.
It's everything Charlie said about confidence, about belief, about form. It's also the way they play. They don't need the ball. They can sit against the ball everywhere they go, and they can counter. They can be dangerous through Ryan Gauld. They can be dangerous on set pieces with Youngworth coming up from the back, and Godoy or whoever else is in the starting lineup. And then outside of Blake and Turner, I think Maxime Crépeau was the best goalkeeper this year and has shown over the last month, both for Canada at the Azteca as well as in some huge games against KC, against Portland, against Seattle, that he can be a match winner in MLS. So they have a ton of the pieces that go together. Obviously, they're not favorites, but that's what a dark horse is. But I like their ability to be a team that can upset a bunch of sides, and confidence. Just like they didn't make the playoffs because, no offense, they played Texas and snuck in. They made the playoffs because they beat all teams above them in the playoff race, game in and game out, on midweeks, on the road, at home, down 2-0 at Portland, in a game Portland was trying to win. And that's the type of group that you can see going far.
Charlie, we've got one on that side of the bracket. Western, you have an Eastern Conference team for me?
I do. Orlando City.
Oh.
Orlando. I look at Orlando City's record coming into this, and they have 1 loss, just like Nashville. However, they have 3 wins, and Nashville has 1. And I just think that Nashville have 6 draws, 6 out of the last 8. And for me, just the way they play, it's almost like they depend on Hani Mukhtar to do everything in the attacking half of the game. Now, we know Randall Leal is capable of hitting some bombs from deep. But for me, I think Orlando has a good chance, especially if this goes into penalties. I'm taking Galese in a penalty shootout over
Joe Willis.
And Joe's been great all year. But I just think the way this Orlando City side is kind of coming into their own towards the end of the season, I feel like they have the advantage and they could be the sleeper.
By the way, Nani might be back. He has time to rest, get back to himself. Daryl DK on form as well, and that deep line midfield in Orlando. Could they cause problems for Hani Mukhtar, keep him from doing some of the things that he likes to do, finding the space that he thrives in? Yeah, maybe. And those draws, as we said over and over, that opens things up for other teams. That gives you a potential extra time. That gives you PKs. That gives you an opportunity to make a play that changes the game. I'm going to take the Loons as my dark horse. And it's weird to talk about them as a dark horse because at the beginning of the season, we were talking about them winning the Western Conference. They had that level of talent. Things didn't exactly go right along. Those first 4 games of the season, had they maybe just won 2 of those, this would be a different story for the Loons. They'd probably be hosting this game against Portland, or maybe even better. That's not the way it went down. But when you have Emmanuel Reynoso, when you have Robin Lod, when you have Fragapane, when you have the defense that they have, and I know there's been some inconsistencies there, and if you have Ozzie Alonso healthy,
Wait.
you have the ingredients to go. You can do it.
You're missing the biggest piece to me, though.
Who?
They are the same team they were last year, but now they have Hunu. And so Lode can play in his actual position. And if the debate is, what about them is different than last year? They don't have Molino, but I think they've got two guys who can do the role that he played by himself.
Exactly.
And that, to me, is why you look at a team that made the run last year and could do it this year.
Look, could Hunu make the difference? Sure. I'm not counting on him to make the difference.
But his presence allows Robin
opens
Lode
it up for
to
the
make
other
the difference.
guys.
Yes.
Correct. And Reynoso is just an absolute genius. He is the second, in my opinion, he's maybe the most entertaining player in this league. The second might be Sebastian Blanco. Thank God for us. These two tins are going against each other on Sunday on ESPN. But look, I just think Minnesota, they have what it takes to sort of just hit the gas and go for a run and say, hey, for us, 4 games and we're there. They could do it. Maybe it's a reversal of the start to the season. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty right now. Philadelphia Union New York Red Bulls gets the Audi 2021 MLS Cup playoffs started. As I said, 2:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. We will start the pregame at 2. That's going to be on Twitter Spaces. It will also be on the stream on MLSsoccer.com and the MLS app. You won't see us, but you'll be able to hear us, so fire that up. If you don't have a way to watch this on Univision or 2DN, MLSsoccer.com, the MLS app, I will repeat over and over and over to you. In case you don't understand somehow by now, the games can be viewed at those locations. You can watch the games. You can put it on your phone. You can, stream it to your TV. You can watch it on a laptop, whatever it is. The games will be there all day. We'll be with you throughout. Philadelphia have the season series lead, 1 win, 2 draws in this one against the Red Bulls. We're going to put this into 4 buckets as we go through these games, as we preview them all throughout the year. The narrative, what's the story, what's special about this game, the protagonists, who are the players we're watching, the matchup, what are the tactics, the 1v1 you want to see, where will the game be won or lost, and then, of course, at the end, the prediction, who moves on and why. Dave, you've got the narrative on this one. What is the story? How do you sell your friend? How do you sell yourself when you're thinking about Union Red Bulls on Saturday to get this thing started?
The way I'd sell any MLS fan who's not a fan of these two teams is this is a chance to see the future. These are two clubs who have figured out how they are going to win going forward in MLS, and it is having a clear identity that everything fits into and then developing youth players that you're pushing into it. And it's not just, you want to see the next Tyler Adams and Brendan Aronson? We'll tune into this game, right? Because those two were on the field for a playoff game 2 years ago against each other for these two teams. It's not just that. It's having the ability to build a club that maybe can compete with teams that spend at a different level because everything is in an efficiency. And the Rapids are already following that. Montreal is already following that. You can see, I think, what we're seeing is the Chicago Fire trying to find a way to get into this sort of a mold of a club. This is the way forward for many clubs in MLS. And these two have done it as well as anyone. I would argue Philly has been the best, and they have changed the way MLS clubs can build and that they can expect to build for the future, hence FC Cincinnati going out and getting Chris Albright.
I mean, the other narrative here is just young, talented players, as you said, and then the style of play, which we'll get to in a second. How about protagonists, Charlie? Who you watching, man? What's the guy?
The guy is Alejandro Bedoya.
Oh my God. I wish I knew the BC fight song right now. Just every time that this goes, just to go straight into that BC fight song.
It goes, all
For
hail
Boston.
Northeastern, we sing with great play.
He's the captain. He is the heart and soul of this Union side. And both teams are so direct, north and south, that a lot of it's going to have to come down to the midfield, second balls, the transition game. And Alejandro Bedoya is vital for the Union in those instances. As far as just even picking up guys and character and, the crunching tackles, they need that from Alejandro Bedoya. He's their leader, both emotionally and on the field, as far as guiding players, making sure you're holding players accountable. I think in this matchup, it's going to be massive. Him versus, the New York Red Bulls, basically. And I think that's the player to watch in this match.
Who you got, Dave? Who's your protagonist for this one?
If I'm going to go to the Red Bull side and say Caden Clark. He was the bright spot for them early in the season. Then he gets the appendectomy. He has, it takes time to get back. The Red Bulls have improved immensely while he's working his way back. From what we saw at the U20 level over the last week and a half at the Revelations Cup for the US U20s, he looks like himself again. He's taking guys quickly off his first touch. He's cutting guys. He's aggressive. He's playing north to south. That looks like the player that the Red Bulls need. And the Red Bulls were they were a top 2 defensive team in the league. They won every game 1-0 to close out the regular season and make the playoffs, they need that goal scoring. They need that little bit of a crown jewel like Charlie talked about with Bedoya, like I think Montero can be for Philly. And if Red Bulls get this done, it's going to be Caden Clark.
By the way, I have for the Red Bulls, I just looked at the results on them. They have one game of more than 2 goals scored since mid-September. That's in about 11 games over that time. So goal scoring is going to be an absolute premium for them. Where does the difference come from? I think the Union have some of the same issues, though they don't have quite the same deficiencies as far as the last 10 games in goals. They've scored more over that time. They've also had 2 games against Cincinnati in which they scored 2 goals in those games. So take that or leave it. But to me, and again, Weeby cheat time, 2 players, Klimala and Shabilko. Both those guys have the potential. We talked about star power and how it can make the difference. And you go to Robbie Keane, you're like, a goal every game for him. You think about Raul Ruiz-Diaz. He's in that same boat. There are teams in these playoffs that can count on their number 9 to finish one of the 3 or 4 chances they get in a match. I don't know that either of these teams can count on their number 9 to do that. It could happen, and if it does, they'll probably win and move on. But I don't think either of these guys has double digits this year. Maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, Shabilko's right at 10 or Klimala's right at 10. I think they're both just under.
Shabilko has 12.
Okay,
year.
So Shabilko is over. Well, I bet wrong in that case. But either way.
But that doesn't include his 5 CCL goals, so it's 17 on the year.
Well, crap. Either way, I still think that there's just a level of inconsistency when it comes to efficiency and goal scoring for the guys that are paid to do that for both these teams. And when you talk about 90 minutes, 1 goal changes it all, and particularly for these teams. Red Bulls, with the defense they have, if Klimala can get on the board early, that might change this game. That might give them the opportunity to be on the front foot, to be in a counterattacking situation, to have more space to go into and to force Philly to have the ball and to put themselves in the dangerous positions that we know they want to press on and then go directly to goal. For Philly, if they get that opening goal, maybe they don't give the Red Bulls any space to play. So I just think these 2 guys can sort of set the tone for this match tactically, and I think it's going to be a 1-goal game. 1 goal is going to decide
I think
it.
you're right on that. But I do think the advantage goes to the Union because they're home. If this was at Red Bulls Arena, I would say, man, Red Bull Arena, it's one of the toughest places to play. I would say, man, with the way that they're playing right now and how they're focused and they kind of turned it on, everything's clicked under Gerhard Struber. But just at playing in Philly, it's so difficult. They're so good at home. So that's why I give them the slight nod in this one.
All right, talk me through the matchup here, Charlie. On the field, 1v1 matchup you're looking at, the overall tactics. I mean, for this one, it's probably just like the demolition derby that this has the potential to be. Like,
everyone wearing your crew hard hats.
Yeah, it's 2 Rams like eyeing each other on the mountaintop, being like, who is going to smash their dome into the others the hardest and knock you down? Like they're not trying to hide who they are. In a lot of ways, that's sort of the sell on the matchup, man. It is going to be frantic. It's going to be crazy, I think. And if it's not, I'm going to be so disappointed that they didn't go to like their true identities in this. I think they will.
I think I look at Kasper Shabilko and Sergio Santos and just Nealis, Andres Reyes, their back line. That's my matchup is the Union's strikers and Sergio Santos and Shabilko versus the Red Bulls back line. That is the matchup for me. Who sets the tone? Is Sergio Santos stretching, or Sergio Santos and Kasper Shabilko linking up? Are they playing together, or are they playing as individuals? We've seen it countless times when they play as individuals. Maybe one shines and the other doesn't, but typically as a team, it doesn't go well. It doesn't work out for them. But when they're playing together in a partnership and they're moving off of each other, they're very difficult to beat. So that's what I'm interested in. That's what I'm going to be looking at.
I'm looking at the midfield, Dave. I think the midfield is where, that's where the second balls are going to be. That's where those moments of like transition opportunity are going to be. That's where it's going to get a little bit unbalanced and where both these teams want to find that difference, whether it be, Yearwood or Davis or whoever ends up in that midfield for the Red Bulls. And then we kind of know the triumvirate for the Union with Martinez and Montero and Bedoya.
We think
Who do you think has the edge?
By the way.
Yeah, well.
No, I just think it is. The 2 things that are interesting in this game starting lineup-wise are, does Gerhard Struber try and get Fabio in the team? Because Klimala was suspended on decision day. Fabio gets the goal. He has now played him as a winger / second forward at times. And does Jim Curtin roll the dice and get Paxton Aronson or Jack McGlynn in this game? which add more creativity, and to Charlie's point of how low scoring it is, one of those two could bring you goals, but also it weakens your ability to win second balls in midfield, to win that physical battle, which is what is the bread and butter for these teams. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I think Drew Yearwood, his ground coverage is huge, and it has been for the Red Bulls as they finally have gotten him into the first team. And then on the flip side, Alejandro Bedoya does that. But to me, Jamiro Montero has the quality on the ball that no one else in the game has. And that is the difference maker when he's able to find that space.
Of the two managers, I kind of think Jim Curtin has more decisions to make, whether that be to have Sergio Santos in the team or to go Gazdag and Montero up top with Shabilko. I mean, in that midfield, Flock, Martinez, Bedoya, Montero, Gazdag. You could get them all in there if you wanted to. Whereas, I don't know, maybe you disagree with me, Dave, but I feel like
give me some
Struber,
Paxton Aronson. Be the Jim Curtin who is the Philly Union. You need that flair. You need that magic.
Is this a McGlynn game?
Yeah.
Okay, it's on the bench, man. It's 90 minutes. Set the tone. They're going to come out and try to punch you in the mouth. Maybe it's not the time for Paxton Aronson. We shall see. Curtin might make that decision, TBD. Whereas on the Red Bull side, I think it's a little bit more straightforward outside of trying to figure out Klimala and Fabio. Look, those road and away splits, they matter. The regular season matters. As Charlie said, if you look at them for both these teams, it's 11-3-3 at home for Philly. That is the second best record in the East. And the Red Bulls are pretty good on the road. 5-9-3 helps when you don't have to have the ball, probably, but we shall see. This is going to be a big one. We know what time it is, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, Saturday. It gets us all started. MLSsoccer.com, the MLS app. Univision TUDN. Give me your predictions, Charlie. You get us started. Predict. Who is it? There's no drama to be said here. You can't waffle. You can't pretend like Doyle that your connection is going out. You can't start making static noises.
You know me, I'm not one to shy away.
Wow. Shots fired at Doyle. Shots fired. Pause.
There's no
Come
pause.
on. Come strong with it.
Vancouver upset Sporting Kansas City.
That's not the game we're talking about. We're talking about the Philadelphia Union and the Red Bulls, Charlie.
I said Philadelphia at home.
Okay. Oh, sorry. My bad.
I didn't pick up on that either.
Right,
but I'm gonna follow. I'm gonna follow Charlie.
Oh, that's what I like. I think I was like muted out or something.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool.
I made my case and all of a sudden.
So Charlie did actually lose his connection, but he was strong. He did get dropped.
Yeah,
I was strong as can be. But here we go.
Okay. All right. Well, Vancouver, you picked that one. We'll get. To
I'm
that
gonna follow. I'm gonna follow Charlie's lead. I think when you look at you're looking at two teams that play a similar style. I don't know that there's the advantage there for either team, but Philly has match winners, and they have a guy in Jamiro Montero. I think that is a level above pretty much everyone else. And then, as Charlie mentioned, they're at home. Side note, I will be at this game as a fan because I'm off that day, and I'm driving down for it. So if anyone has any recs of what to do pregame or around Philly besides getting barbacoa, let me know. And good luck.
Are you going to be in your Red Bulls kit, or are you just going to
Bull
Charlie?
kit,
I'm obviously going to wear Revs gear. Come on, bro. The revolution.
He made the
protect
pick.
the fort.
The preseason. The preseason prediction trumps all. He's got to rock the Revs till the end of the time. By the way, that felt like a little bit of a, hey, if you want to buy me a beer, I'll be there.
I've never drank a beer a day in my life.
It is.
Okay.
For sure.
No free beers. No free beers for Dave.
But if you see me, you can pass one along. Whatever. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I could go Philly, but that might be the ultimate curse for them. My initial pick straight off decision day, like no logic whatsoever, was the Red Bulls, just because it feels a little bit different for them right now. Like they're together in a way that they weren't certainly midseason, and just to have some variance here.
Don't give me that. Don't give me that.
But some variance, man. That back line, Sean Nealis has been really incredible for them. So is Reyes. The midfield is solid. Let's say Klimala. You know what? I doubted Klimala. He's getting a goal. Red Bulls win.
Okay.
Sorry, Jim. I love you and your team, man. I'm just trying to give us some variety on this show. All right, let's turn to the second game on Saturday. This one, Sporting Kansas City, Vancouver Whitecaps, 5 p.m. Eastern, MLSsoccer.com, the MLS app. Again, if you want to watch these things, Univision TUDN as well. It's an AT&T 5G call to the field. We have an expert in the Western Conference. He also knows away goal rules very, very well. It's Zarek Valentin. What's up?
That's a great.
Zarek, how's it going?
That's a great intro. Is it Doyle that has that as their?
No, that's me.
That's you.
That will always be one of my favorite MLS Cup playoff moments of you with your teammates gathered around you with puzzled look on your faces, explaining to them why it is that at this moment they are not technically winners thankfully you guys got it done. But welcome, man. Glad to have you.
Thanks a lot for having me. My favorite part was Blanco's quote after the game going, I fell to my knees and started cheering because I knew we had him at penalty kicks. Oh, man, it's so good.
Oh, man.
It's so
Yeah,
good.
that's like, it's the equivalent of spiking the football when you're at the 10-yard line. Like, Blanco just knew he was getting there, baby.
I know.
All right, Sporting KC Vancouver season series. The team split. 1 win apiece. Sporting Kansas City won at home in mid-May. That was
Pre-Vanny.
Correct.
PV. PV.
Yes.
Pre-Vanny.
Oh, double PVs.
Double
Wow.
PV.
Oh, no. It's PS. And it's sad for me. And then the Caps won in mid-October. 2-1, and that was with a full-strength Sporting Kansas City team. So that was with Russell, that was with Shallowy, that was with the full midfield backline. It was not with Polito, who will now be back. Sartini went with a 3-5-2 in that game, which is sort of what we're accustomed to seeing from the Whitecaps at this point. I'll start with the narrative here. What's the story? Well, the story is that Sporting Kansas City, outside the MLS Cup in 2013, haven't got to a cup. They have won the Open Cup since then, but they're still trying to get there, and they have the team they think to do so basically every single year, though Peter will tell you they're punching above their weight. But Vanni Sartini, after winning on decision day, or drawing, I should say, said, we'll beat Sporting Kansas City. He put it out there right now. The Whitecaps are maybe the hottest team in the league. As you said, Dave, they basically beat all the teams that they're going to be playing, or at least had good results against these playoff teams in the West. And this is what Vanni had to say about that quote. He kind of didn't walk it back, but he said, quote, if you were at the stadium, you would be confident. If you watched this team play the last 10 games, you would be confident. Every stat says we're one of the best teams in the league in the last 15 to 20 games. I would be wrong if I wasn't confident. Well, full-strength Sporting Kansas City. That's the ultimate test. You're confident, Vanni? You got PV's best. You got Polito, you got Shallowy, you got Russell. You've got a team that believes that they should be there, that's sort of in the prime for them of a championship winning window. That's the narrative. Both these teams think they can do it for different reasons. Who are the protagonists? Zarek, get us started. And actually, first of all, what do you think about a coach saying that they're going to beat somebody on the road in the playoffs on the back of decision day?
I mean, it's bold. First and foremost, everyone knows Kansas City is one of the toughest places to play in the league. The fans come, the Peter always, I don't know what he says in that locker room, but the first 10 minutes of those games, their team always comes out hot in the post. They score a lot of early goals in games. And for me, it's going to be really interesting because Kansas City has lost the last 3 games and Vancouver is 6 straight unbeaten. So you have a tale of a team that might not be in their best form, and one that, the coaches, his quotes after they made it are all-time MLS. Champagne in my system. We can't play tomorrow because we're going to be too drunk. It's all time. All time. So for me, it's going to be really interesting to see you have a team, especially after a long break, how they both come into the game.
What do you think that break means? We got Charlie's point of view on the Revs. Like, having done this in the past, what does that break do? How do you get through it in the best way?
I think it actually benefits Kansas City more, the break, and I think that it actually hurts Vancouver. In MLS past, you've seen the Timbers in 2018 when I was there and the Timbers in 2015, where they come in and they reach the playoffs as a lower seed, but they come in very hot. And then they win an away game, and then they keep playing those games, and suddenly they develop that momentum, and that carries you pretty far. And ultimately, when you have a week, Bruce said they won't play for almost 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. And that might
23 days.
That's very difficult. How do you keep fitness? How do you keep that sharpness? So for me, I actually think it's going to be better for Kansas City to kind of regroup. They get their numbers back, and it's going to be a very interesting game.
Zarek, we said we were going to give you first hack at protagonists, but you said you had some backups if yours got taken. So I'm going to put you on the spot and actually go to Dave for your protagonist in this game. We might make you scramble, Zarek. Dave, who's your protagonist in this one?
I think it has to be Ryan Gauld. What he can do between the lines, the way he can launch the transition moments for Vancouver. It's going to be 60 to 65% possession for SKC. That's just who they are. Zarek said it. At home, even more than they are on the road. And they had that number in Vancouver like a month ago. So if Vancouver is going to create opportunities, it's going to come through Gauld, whether it's him making that late run and finishing a pullback or a cross, or it's him starting the attack in transition. He's that guy that they were sort of waiting for over the last year and a half. And yeah, we could talk about Vanni Sartini, and we should, but him coming into the team has been a large part of this run as well.
Charlie, your protagonist.
Whoa, you're really putting Zarek on the spot.
I just want to see. I want to see if we take his.
My protagonist in this one is Johnny Russell. Ooh. Johnny Russell is one of those players who can really create something out of nothing. Magical left foot, can beat you left, beat you right, score from distance. When he's on, I don't think I've seen Sporting Kansas City lose. When he is on, he changes the whole way the opposition has to play, and then opens up so much space for everybody else. So I think for me, if Sporting Kansas City are going to be successful in this playoff run, they need him to be at his peak.
All right, Zarek, did we take your guy?
You didn't, but I'm actually going to pivot a little bit. I'm going to take...
Wow, who was the original,
the
though?
original?
I need to know who
the original was Shallowy. He's been an MVP candidate the entire year, and he's managed to score goals and find assists, and he's had a career year. And obviously playing against the back five, there's a lot less space for him to run and create those moments. But kind of to piggyback off what was said, I'm going to take Mauri, Ilie, or whoever that holding it mid is for Kansas City. You have a team that loves the ball in Kansas City. They get their outside backs really high. Wingers tuck in a little bit. So basically they're kind of matched up. And if they can put out the fires that might happen when Vancouver tries to break, they will have control of that game. And they've kind of rotated a little bit who's been there. But whoever's in that holding mid spot needs to be on top of their game. Because with Dahomey and with Brian and with Gold, if they don't play that right, if they don't foul in the right spots, if they don't keep the ball and put out those fires, as I said, Vancouver can hit them on the counter. And they've done it against other teams, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did it again.
And that's why I add that with that buildup, you have a slower player who's playing that position for Sporting Kansas City. They don't have someone who can cover so much ground and pace. And with Brian White and Dahomey, who are just always looking to run in behind, that's going to stretch Sporting Kansas City. And we know they lack pace back there. That's not a secret. And for Johnny Russell, when they do play so condensed in the center of the park, you need someone who can play out wide and get isolated 1v1. And that's why I think it's even that much more important for a player of his quality to shine.
I'm going to go with Brian White in this one, and that might be a little bit of a cop-out, but it goes to what you're saying, Zarek, about sort of the transition moments. We see that they're at their best, but with him on set pieces as well, he's so good in those moments. But when he gets in behind and Dahomey can sort of trail him, or Dahomey's the one that gets in behind and he makes the run, the timing, the rhythm, the precision in those moments, like against the Sounders, they had one or two, but they only need one or two. If they aren't precise in those moments, I don't think they'll win this game. Sporting Kansas City aren't going to give them some raft of opportunities. Sporting Kansas City are going to defend with the ball for the majority of this game, and they're going to create chances with Shalhoub and Russell. Period. That will happen. Vancouver, they're going to have to find a way, and they're going to have to find the moments, and Brian White's going to have to choose the right pass or finish in those times. They've done it so far to get to this point, but this is where the pressure is on. Now it's on them. Brian White hasn't been in these moments. Christian Dahomey, these are his first of that nature in MLS, though he's done it in South America in massive ones. And he's played in Libertadores and Sudamerica. I just think those two, Gauld, you're right, Dave. He can play the ball. He can make the second run. But if those two don't handle the moment when it comes, that opportunity won't be there, in my opinion. Did you shake your head? You didn't seem to like that?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I disagree that they haven't been in this moment, and Charlie and Zarek would know better than me, but it feels like they were playoff games for Vancouver the last 5 weeks.
That could be fair.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You're playing Portland in Portland with 3 games to go and a must-win. You're playing KC at home. You're at Seattle. So, yeah, maybe they haven't been in an MLS Cup playoff game, but they've been as close as you can get, and they've performed when the lights have been on.
I think that's fair. How about the matchup? Let's go to that side. Zarek, what do you see? Having played against these two teams, having game planned against them, how do you see this one going down?
I see, similar to what we were talking about, I see Kansas City having a lot of the ball. I see them spreading out and opening up, and this is pretty much the same narrative when you watch them play at home. Outside backs get high, their wingers pinch in a little bit, and they leave themselves pretty exposed at the back. So for me, the matchup is the holding mid of Kansas City plus the 2 center backs versus Dahomey, Gould, and White. It's going to be interesting. Whoever, for me, comes out on top of those matchups is going to eventually probably win the game because, as we say, Kansas City is going to have the ball. So the best shot Vancouver has is to either catch them on a counter or a set piece. And for me, Kansas City lives and dies in those moments. We've seen them where they've been great at putting out those fires, and we've seen them where they probably get a little bit too exposed. And ultimately, it's going to probably be more experienced, players, and you have Fontas back there and some of these guys that are a little bit older, and you have Tim Mealy in goal versus, Brian White. This guy's flying. Since moving there, he scored a boatload of goals, and obviously Dahomey is a game changer too. So for me, that matchup is key to the game.
We haven't said his name yet. I just want to say Izzy Matt Marine. Nicholas Izzy Matt Marine. He played on decision day. It's been a TBD in that lineup all year long. It's been one of the weak spots for Kansas City for years now. It looks like he will play set pieces, transition moments where you have to get out and run a little bit. That's kind of why they got him to partner Fontas. So we'll see if that pays off.
And he played a decent chunk down the stretch, and when he was in, they looked better. It's just, we've talked about Red Bull Philly and now this game. I think these are the two clearest tactical games of we're not going to see a lot that we don't expect. Right? With NYCFC Atlanta, it could go a couple different ways with Portland, Minnesota. Like, there are different teams that have different wrinkles. It feels like these are the two games where if there's anything besides a 60+% possession for SKC, we'd all be surprised. And if Philly and Red Bull don't press the hell out of each other, we'd also be surprised. So it's interesting that these two matchups kind of the way that they're going to lay themselves out.
Zarek, get us started on the predictions, man. What do you think?
Hi. In Kansas City and Vancouver, you have experience, guys who've been in the playoffs, guys who've been far, and inexperience in Vancouver, where I don't know if any of those players have really gone extremely far. But I'm going to go with the inexperience. I'll give it a 1-0 Vancouver win. I think they're going to sit back, and I think they're going to ride this wave. I think that they're going to absorb. I think a protagonist in which you might have talked about, Maxime Crepeau is going to have a good day. He's going to have to make at least 2 or 3 really good saves. And if they can do that, I could see them catching one on a counter. And then obviously chuck numbers forward. But they're my dark horse. I think that Vanny has his team flying right now. I think the break is definitely not helped them. But I'll go a little bold and I'll say 1-0 Vancouver. They'll catch them on one of those moments.
Just enraged Andrew Wiebe. Enraged.
Give me a break, bro.
He is furious.
Give me a break.
That's 2 people.
Don't feed these people in my mentions,
people
man. Don't feed them. That's why they come at me so often when I say
no
not as nice things about Kansas City. You said Vancouver, right, Charlie?
Yeah,
I almost forgot because you've already made your. You want to justify it, or you just feel good about making it 10 minutes ago?
I think they're just so confident that they're on this magical run right now, and I just feel like they're bought in. They're willing to put everything on the line to defend first and counter, and they're very good at that. And when you have a team that knows their identity and they're not going to play outside of that, I think they're ready for this challenge. Like Goss, you said, every match up to this point has been playoff mode for them. They know it's one and done. If they don't get it done, they're not going to make the playoffs. And they perform that way. This is not going to be any different for them.
To be clear on experience, Florian Jungwirth was part of the San Jose team that lost 5-0 at Vancouver in the first round of the playoffs.
Also, Florian Jungwirth was on the team that lost to Kansas City last year on
There you go.
Though, as I said, Wando did come back in time.
So, great experience for a defender to give up 8 goals in 2 playoff games in your career.
Well, that's the Quakes experience.
In
baby.
MLS. I think Vancouver is probably screwed at this point because I'm going to say Vancouver as well. I mentioned them as my dark horse, and I think Zarek made a good point of it's probably worst case scenario for them that this layoff happened, that KC can sort of get back to who they were, get their confidence back, get in training. And then on the flip side, Vancouver, they want to play 7 games a week right now if they could. That was where they were at coming out of it after they got drunk, of course, on decision day. So I still think, though, to everything Charlie said, to everything Zarek said, I still think it's a Vancouver team that knows who they are, that the pieces make sense. They'll stretch that back line. They'll give Galt space underneath. And they've got a player on the bench in Diber Caicedo who has fallen out of the starting lineup, but has committed to being a difference maker off the bench. He does not sulk when he comes in. And so they can, at 60, 65 minutes, still change things up and change the way that they attack.
Go ahead, Wiebe.
You know it's coming.
I saw him get ready.
I'm just going to stand against, man. I'm going to stand against. Now, the one thing I will say, I don't think Sporting Kansas City has anybody on the bench that can affect the game the same way that a Diber Caicedo can affect this game. And that is sort of the weak point for them. But when you look at these two teams, the starting lineups, the experience, the quality up top, to me, Kansas City has the advantage, and being at home is a massive advantage for Kansas City. I think they win this game. I know transition is going to be everything. Fontas, I voted for Fontas for Defender of the Year because I thought he defended in 2 ways. 1, he was the best possession player in the league, and he broke lines all the time and started that attack. 2, though you can question it in the past, in transition moments, he was really good this year. And with Izzy Matt Marine next to him, it's strength to strength. I do have some worries about the outside backs if they get isolated, but I have no worries about Roger Espinoza.
I was
waiting
waiting.
the right moment.
I was waiting for
no
Roger.
worries about
Yep.
that. Like
You
if
knew
you
it.
want, if you
You
like,
knew it.
Roger's job is going to be to sniff out those like times where Vancouver's thinking, all right, one pass and go here, and to either cut off the passing lane or foul somebody. He's as good at that as anybody in the league.
Just ask my brother in the national championship game back in, I think, 2006 when Roger cleated him in the face.
He's been doing it for 15 years. I think Sporting Kansas City get this one done at home. That's Saturday. Remember, MLSsoccer.com and the MLS app. You can also watch on Univision and Tude Ine. And remember, your Audi Bracket Challenge, you can base them on our picks or whoever you agree with, or if you like Charlie, you can just start yelling them out beforehand, however you want to do it. All right, let's get to Sunday real quick. We're going to skip over the East, though it is the first game of the day at 3 p.m. Eastern on ABC, ESPN Deportes, NYCFC hosting Atlanta United at Yankee Stadium. We'll get that in a second. We have Zarek, so we got to stay on the West, and that means we are talking Portland Timbers, Minnesota United, 5:30 p.m. ESPN Deportes. This is interesting. Minnesota 2 wins, no losses, no draws against the Timbers this year. What's the story in your mind, Dave, in this game? What's the narrative? What matters? How would you sell somebody?
It's match winners. It's Blanco versus Reynoso, and who will step up and carry their team. It's two teams that have experience making runs in the playoffs, and it's building the structure to let those players shine. And so the opportunity to see something great. What Blanco did at SKC, Zarek mentioned it, the run in 2018. It's one of the great goals in playoff history. What Reynoso did all of last playoffs was one of the great performances in MLS playoff history. So it's a chance in the atmosphere you want, right? It's going to be cool. The stadium's going to be packed. It's going to be loud. And just the ability to see players that, in Reynoso's case, I don't know that we ever really saw a player like this come into this league before. Boca Juniors in your prime, and then be able to play at his level, try and do something great.
I'm looking at this one as sort of a redemption arc for both teams. I think you can say that neither had the regular season necessarily that they wanted to have, though the Timbers sort of recovered in that sense. This is their time. This is in a lot of ways what these two teams were built for. Not necessarily 34-game excellence, but a cup run. And this is their cup run. This is their opportunity to make history. Protagonist time. Zarek, give us your protagonist, man.
Woo! Oh, I get to go first this time. That's nice.
This time. Yeah. We tested you last time. You passed the test, and now you have pole position once again.
Yeah, for me, this is the most interesting matchup in the Western Conference for the first round. You have a Portland team that's won 3 straight going into this, but a Portland team that has also not beaten Minnesota in the past 7 meetings. Minnesota's won 6 of those, and they've drawn once.
Wow.
So Minnesota's definitely had Portland's number, even dating back to, I think, when I was there, which was 2019. So it's been a few years of this now. But for me, the protagonist has to be Reynoso. Going against someone like him in this game, it will be difficult. And then on the flip side, you have somebody like Diego Chara. And these are these matchups that are just so fun to watch. So for me, everything that Minnesota has goes through Reynoso. He has a free roll to pick up the ball to go where he wants. He's on the left, he's on the right, he's creating overloads, he's serving the ball. He's incredibly pinpoint on a set piece free kicks. So Chara needs to be careful not to foul too much in and around the box, because when we played him, he hit the post in the first 30 seconds off a set piece, and then the other one was in the top corner, but we had someone make a save. So for me, Reynoso is definitely my protagonist for this match.
Charlie, who you got? We all wanted Reynoso, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like that.
It was more so Chara for me. So Chara is going to set the tone for this Portland Timbers team. He always does. He's incredible. The way he plays box to box, for me, is obviously one of the greatest defensive midfielders to ever play in this league. And when he's on point, it's some of the transition moments where he wins a tackle and then starts that attack and finds Blanco, or he's able to get into the attacking half. He's going to be the one who has to do it for Portland in this match. And that starts with cracking back down on Hunu when he tries to find those pockets, picking up that space. Also, Reynoso, not allowing him to kind of dance on the ball. You can't allow him to dictate the tempo of the game. If Chara takes him out, they win this game.
Dave?
Takes him out was an interesting term to use. With Diego Chara.
Takes him out of the
I
running play.
understand. I got you.
Yes.
If he finds himself at the bottom of the East River.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not talking about that. Okay, jeez.
Can I say
That was good.
Can I say whichever Timber fullback gives up a penalty kick as the protagonist in this game? Is that fair?
We have a former Timbers fullback in here.
Yeah. Wasn't
yeah.
giving up PKs. Van Rinken and Bravo, they've both been special going forward, and they've both been huge question marks defending. And to me, Portland is the worst defensive team in the playoffs. They gave up the most goals. And you guys talk about Diego Chara because he's excellent, but also because he has to be. They can't defend as the back four by themselves, and not a ton of the attacking pieces are going to come back and help. So with Williamson out, it sucks. Actually, Paredes, though, is a bit more of a stay-at-home player. That gives you a couple more numbers, but we talked about it in the beginning with Minnesota. With Lode coming back into his natural winger position, Fragapane and Lode are both match winners in my mind. And I struggle to see how, whether it's Bonilla or Van Rinken and Bravo, are able to keep them contained for a full 90.
This is not a vintage Weeby list. I'm just throwing it out there. Tyler Miller's made some pretty head-scratching mistakes recently in what has otherwise been an excellent season for him. You make a head-scratching mistake in these playoff matches, that might just be it for Minnesota.
And Steve Clark would never do that in a never.
Never. Not in a million years. Certainly wouldn't sit on the ball in, I don't know, first couple of minutes of
Listen,
I'm
normally a Steve Clark apologist. He's a great goalkeeper, but
he's been really
the nod,
his underlying numbers, by the way, have been really good. My protagonist is
No,
Sebastian
but before
Blanco.
that, who gets the nod? If you had to pick
Yeah.
one keeper.
between
To
the
make the
two of
difference in
them,
this game? I think Steve Clark.
yeah, I would probably go the same.
And I would
I
would
think
third
Steve
that.
Clark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Zarek doesn't
Sorry,
have to
Steve.
say anything because he still
long-
plays in a league
yeah.
with them.
Make it four.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, long memory on that one. Nobody took Sebastian Blanco, and I got to take him. He just feels like he's in sort of a prove-it moment that we've seen in the past from Timbers players, elder statesmen, let's say, where it's like, hey, man, your future is a little bit up in the air. It sounds like they want to get a deal done. They better want to get a deal done. But as Zarek is showing you there on the YouTube, the amount within said deal is still TBD. And for Sebastian Blanco in 12 games back, I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me. I probably should. It's been like 7-5 or something like that.
Yeah.
He is one of the best players in this league.
Yeah.
If he is healthy an entire season, he is an MVP candidate. You don't even have to think about that. He will be right there.
Yep.
We've seen in the playoffs before. If he is himself, and the Timbers are at home in front of the Timbers Army, and Nijgoda and Mora and all these other guys are firing, I think that they will win this game. But the back line is a big question mark. And I'm going to take it back to you, Zarek, on this side. What do you think as far as this matchup tactically? What matters if you're Gio Savarese? We'll start there.
I definitely think that the Timbers never want to get too stretched. The team has shown that they're not the greatest if it becomes a track meet back and forth. So I think that normally they get back in their 2 blocks of 4 when they defend, and they're pretty solid in those moments. And for me, inversely, the funny thing that's always funny, you always suddenly find Ozzy Alonso with some Portland number 10. He's always around there. So for me, it's going to be interesting to also see how that matchup. You have the Chara and Reynoso, then you have the Ozzy and the Will Trapp versus Blanco. And, though you have all those guys there that can balance that. So,
That's so class, by the way, that we get that we get Ozzy and Diego back in this position again as like the erasers against a Blanco and a Reynoso. It's like this could have been happening 10 years ago in this league.
oh, yeah.
And yet here we are again.
Here we go.
It's awesome.
Ageless wonders. I mean, these guys are still kicking it. It's been incredible to see. Also, just the level in which they consistently maintain, even when the legs might not be there like they were a few years ago. These guys got it up there, and they can really read the game and feel the game. They know the league so well. I think definitely for me, like I said, the Timbers don't necessarily want to get into a track meet back and forth. They want to make sure that when they have to drop back into their block, they're organized. And like we spoke about, giving Reynoso and these guys on the wing space to run, and when they can make game-changing moves, they've done it. Lod's with the national team scoring goals, right? And you have these guys that can isolate players and become very difficult. As an outside back, I can attest to that. But also, if you look at, the Timbers, they also have a guy in Dairon Asprilla who's having one of the best year. He's having the best year of his career. And
he's magic.
Yes. And so, when you have the Fragapanes and you have Lod, on that side, you can look on the other side. And when Dairon is confident and doing bicycle kicks from wherever. Things seem to be
Help
going
me
all
here.
right.
You've seen playoff die run
I mean, it is.
up close and personal.
I mean, it's
What is
it's
what
November.
happens to
It's
this man?
November. He just has this. he has this swagger about him that is, it's cool, and I think that he just flips a switch. It's hard to describe whether he prefers the cold weather. You put the gloves on and the long sleeve. There's just something about it where he comes alive, and that could have been the protagonist. That could have been it.
Yeah, we almost had it, but we got there.
But we got
Plus,
it.
you got to mention long sleeves and gloves, so Charlie just woke up from that one. Can I
There it
ask
is.
real
There we
quick?
go.
I know we have our setup, but Zarek's here. Does something change in Geo going into playoffs? Like, obviously, the 2018 run, we've seen Open Cup semifinals as well. Is there something different?
I think that behind the scenes, Gio is an incredible player manager. Incredible when he comes to dealing with dealing with personalities and these types of things. And for example, I saw a video once where one of the center backs actually megged the center back in training, and then they kind of completed a pass or something like that, and then they waved it off, and he kind of called off training and stuff. I think he understands how to push the right buttons. He's kind of, and giving the players certain freedom and really unlocking some of those things. And for me, when we were back in those days, and, I could think back, we played Dallas away in 2018, and to kind of, bring in J-Bo and give J-Bo all the confidence to where he had a goal and an assist in his second ever playoff game. So it's one of these situations where he knows which buttons to push, and ultimately the players have to make the plays, and they have to go out there and put the ball in the net and keep it out. But Gio's an incredible player manager, and so is Adrian Heath, to be fair. So I think that it's going to be an incredibly passionate matchup. The amount of giftable moments from the coaches is going to be a lot of fun. So we'll make sure we can have the coach cams, and it'll be a fun one to watch. It's like I said, for me, it's the most interesting matchup there in the Western Conference.
It's a content farm.
Charlie, Adrian, what's he got to do? What's he need to do? Give me that loon
Charlie's
side.
connection just broke again.
Yeah, no, I think it's making sure that this team is set up to succeed, right? And when you brought Hassani Dotson into, being in a more central role, because he is, I think, for me, long term, a great 6'8", like being in that position in the midfield, because he can cover so much ground. He's good on the ball. I don't think he gets enough credit for his on the ball ability. And I think, the real benefit to Minnesota's style of play is their attacking outside backs. So Chase Gasper and Ramon Metaner, when they're forward and involved, they're very difficult to beat because they provide the width that they normally wouldn't get. And so when they're advanced and attacking and putting balls in the box for Hunu, who is a predator, they are really tough to beat because they keep the ball high up the pitch. They're aggressive. They have players, who can dictate the game. And so for this Minnesota team, the more advanced they are and the higher the lines are up the pitch, the more possession they'll have and the more chances they'll be able to create. Because you don't want to rely on them sitting back and making Tyler Miller come up with these big saves, because eventually they're not. It's not going to work out for them.
A big question mark for Adrian Heath, and it probably comes to Ozzy's health. Is it going to be Trapp and Dotson, or is it going to be Trapp and Ozzy? You saw two different
There is not a
iterations of that on the
safer
final 2
bet
days.
in MLS
It's Ozzy.
that Will Trapp
But it's
starts
Ozzy.
this game. Adrian Heath would start. I can't even think of another player like that if he could. There's no chance that Sonny Dotson starts this game. But I've been wrong before, and I'd love to be wrong again.
The only chance he does is if Ozzy can't play for whatever reason.
Oh,
But
Ozzy's
if Ozzy can
starting.
drag
If
it-
Ozzy has
but if Ozzy
15
can drag-
minutes in him,
I was
he's
gonna say,
starting.
If he can drag himself out there, he will start this match. Prediction time. Who wants to get it started? Who feels locked in, like they know exactly what's going to go down? Okay, Dave, you do.
I got Minnesota, and I've been on that train since day one. I actually disagree with Charlie. I think Minnesota will sit deep and counter. When you look at the goals the Galaxy scored against them, it was because Minnesota opened it up a little bit too much, and their fullbacks did get high. And they can be difference makers, but I go back to they've got 4 guys in the attack who can do it by themselves. So you don't have to provide support and help in a game in which then you can kind of always be one up on the Portland attackers. So I think Minnesota, they showed last year that they, perform in big minutes. We talked about Ike Opara a lot. He didn't play in the playoffs last year. It was Boxall and Dibasi, and they were able to lead this team, guide this team on the road on a playoff run. So I think it's going to be Minnesota United.
Charlie, what do you got?
This is a shocker. I'm going to go Portland at home. I just think when they play, in front of their supporters, and you have Diego Chara and Sebastian Blanco, those players come alive. And I'm one of the biggest fans of Emmanuel Reynoso. I think he's so gifted. I just don't think he'll have the time and space to get it done and be the difference maker in this match because of Diego Chara. And they're going to say, hey, you lock this man up. And I think outside of that, Minnesota are going to struggle to create chances.
All right. We got two sides of the coin here, Zarek.
I actually think it's going to be Timbers 3-2. I think there's going to be goals in this. I think there's goals to be had in this game. Timbers haven't been incredibly good defensively this game or this season for just in general. So I think that there's definitely going to be giving up goals, but kind of what Charlie was saying at home, the crowd's pumped up. Blanco is going to come out. I mean, well, hot take, Blanco's going to come out like a man that wants a new contract, that wants to be invested in even more so as the guy that wants to take those reins fully, from Diego and run with that. And he's been given the keys to the car this year, being the guy pretty much there. Also, Valeri's going to come on at some point in this game, and he still can make a difference as well. So we haven't even brought that up once. But I'm going to say 3-2. I think it's going to be surprisingly a good chunk of goals in this game. Beware of Minnesota on set pieces. One of the best set piece teams in the league. They have their team height average is very tall. Besides Fragapane and Reynoso, but still they have the center. All four defenders are pretty.
Who knew Debasi?
They're pretty big.
Gasper gets it.
Yeah, they're a pretty big team. Even when Coleman's in there, he's like 6'4" as well. So they have a pretty decent team when it comes to creating off set pieces. So I think it's going to be 3-2 Timbers. You're going to see Blanco. It's going to be a fun match to watch. It's going to be the most interesting one, and I'm excited to watch it.
I hope it's that match, in the first in round one, where it's just like, oh my God, you can't tear your eyes away. You're going to miss 2 goals in that time. Give me the Portland Timbers as well at home. I agree with almost everything you say, Dave. I think that Minnesota can do it. I just think that home field advantage for the Timbers is going to be a little bit too much, and having Blanco back and motivated is that's the magic sauce. So Timbers go on. Before
I
we
can't
let you
believe
go,
Zarek came on this show and got you guys all to pick Portland. What a surprise!
Yeah, he just
what a curve.
I'll make sure to
some mind games.
I'll make sure to Venmo you guys afterwards.
Exactly. Zarek, before we let you go, we've been talking about the Rapids a lot on this show and what they've accomplished. But it occurred to me in talking to you before we had you on that you played at Chivas USA with Robin in his first sort of go-round as a manager.
R.I.P.
What have you made of the Rapids this year?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe R.I.P. I don't know. I don't know. In peace might be just R. What have you made of this? From Robin, from the Rapids, his evolution as a coach?
It's incredible to watch. It's MLS's version of Moneyball, pretty much. One of the lowest budgets in the entire league, and to be able to get the team to come together and really spread the wealth. They don't have a 15, 20 goal scorer on their team. I think Michael Barrios is the leading goal scorer, and I don't even know if he has 10. But it's been incredible to see the tactical changes and philosophy that Robin's gone through. And we were together in Chivas, we essentially tried to do what was done in Salt Lake way back in the day when it was Jason, the 4-4-2 diamond, when it was the Ned Grabavoy and you had the Kyle Beckerman and Javi, you had those guys 4-4-2 diamond, you shape it wide, and then you go from there. And now Robin almost plays systems where it almost fluidly changes in the game, where it's a 3-5-2 and then it will mutate into kind of a 4-back at times. And it's really amazing to see because the players do so almost like an extension of Robin on the pitch. And it's really great to see it and to see the way that they react after they lose the ball, the way they see their movements and their passing patterns. And coaches always speak about patterns in training, and Charlie can tell you how many times you get center back to outside back into the center forward, lay it off, play it wide, cross finish. And it's like everyone practices, but how many times does that actually happen in games? But I've watched Colorado play at times, and they have Wilson and their 3 center backs play entry balls, and then they have their wing backs going and it drops back and it's switched. So they have that incredible kind of feel for the way that the game goes, and to see the way Robin has continually developed and challenged himself and challenged his team has been incredible to see.
It's going to be a fun game on Thanksgiving. We're going to have to wait a little while for that, and we will preview it in depth on Monday. We're going to have a Rapids player or coach, maybe Robin, TBD, maybe Cole Bassett on the show. If you have thoughts on that, hit us up. We're going to book that one up for you on Monday. Zarek, it's been great to chat, man. Thank you so much for providing a little expertise from the Western Conference.
Like that.
Appreciate you taking the time, man.
No, thank you guys for having me, and it should be fun. I'm excited for the playoffs. Sadly, we're going to be watching, but watch out. There's some fun things going on down here in Houston. I'm going to tell you right now.
Big thanks to Zarek for joining us here to talk through the Western Conference. Of course, that Western game on Sunday is the second game, as it is Saturday. Let's rewind real quick and preview the first game on Sunday out east. It's on ABC and ESPN Deportes, a big one. NYCFC, Atlanta United, 3 p.m. Eastern. NYCFC hasn't lost to Atlanta United this year, but it's sort of the same as we were talking about with the splits with Kansas City and Vancouver. There are two different seasons, essentially, for them. 1 win, 1 draw for NYCFC. They are really rolling. Tati Castellanos is really rolling, as you said early on, Charlie. Dave, can you help us out with the narrative? Thinking about this matchup, is it like NYCFC's playoff failures? We know how good they've been in the regular season over the last 6 or 7 years, but never has happened for them in the playoffs. Is it like miracle run time for Atlanta? And I say miracle, it might not be quite at that level, but they have not been what they were sort of in those early Rob Valentino and early Pineda days recently. It's been a little bit less impressive, let's say. How would you sell this one?
I'll go with those two.
Cool. Did the work.
Yeah.
Did the work, just laid it out for you. So there's the narrative for you, folks. It's a pretty interesting one. The narrative, I think, on Atlanta's side is like, look at this wealth of attacking talent that doesn't always seem to play coherently as a unit, oftentimes more as individuals, and they haven't really got, despite the 12 goals for Joseph Martinez, Joseph back at his best. But given the level of talent they have, could they make a run? Absolutely they could. They feel to me like just a little bit less than Minnesota on that front, and both go on the road to start this one out.
There you go. You're
Bingo.
welcome.
All right, protagonists, you can start on that one, Dave.
For this matchup,
Yep.
when you're talking about NYCFC, you're starting and you're finishing with Tati. And you look at a team in NYCFC that they've gotten healthier. Obviously, Tinnerholm out and Keaton Parks out is big, but the center backs missed some time this year. They've had different options on the wing. Maxi Morales has been out. It feels like most of that will come together. They are probably good enough to beat Atlanta. If Tati's on, they're clearly better than Atlanta. And if he's off, then it's probably a tough one for them. So he's the linchpin. And we talked about Reynoso. We talked about Blanco. I don't think any of them are as important to their team as Tati is to NYCFC. So I think that's where you start and that's where it finishes.
Who you got, Chuck?
Of course, you take Tati. I'm gonna take Maxi Morales. When he's at his best, and it hasn't been so consistent this year, he opens up the game for the rest of this squad. And I think when you look at Jesus Medina, you look at Thiago Andrade, these are other players who I think when set up in a good way and played into space or getting them isolated 1v1 can change the game for you. And it all comes off of Maxi Morales. Can you find him in the pockets? Are you playing through him? That allows Tati Castellanos to play off the defender's shoulders and be found. And when New York City FC are playing at home and they can find Maxi Morales, it's almost like a work of art. So I think he's going to be a huge indicator if New York City FC are on the front foot, if they're creating opportunities in that small venue. When you play at Yankee Stadium, they're so dominant. I think that's who is going to be the protagonist for this match.
Before we get to my protagonist, and I got to go Atlanta now, apparently, sticking with the NYCFC side, Blue City Radio hit us up and said, how does Dyla solve his midfield problem of missing Keaton Parks, who has a blood clot and is out? Again, we hope the best for him. Gideon Zalalem as well on Sunday. I think Gideon Zalalem, because he got the red card in the final game. Should he put Santi Rodriguez next to Maxi Morales? Santi's sort of been starting on a wing. Should he keep the defense consistent and leave Sands at right back or move Sands into the midfield? Like, how do we think he's going to make up for this? Because it is a pretty big loss to have both Keaton out and then Zalalem, who was sort of the replacement on decision day against the Union, by the way, so they were really depending on him, out as well. I mean, you could get him. I mean, who's it going to be? It's not. I don't think it's really that obvious. It's Morales and who?
Yeah, I think there's a decent chance it's Sands, and I just think you look at it in two ways. One, it feels like there's a belief you can get some performance out of right back, similar to what you're going to get from Sands, even if he's not there, and then he elevates your ability in central midfield. The other option or another option could be to change the formation and push Sands in as a third center back and try and have him stepping in and out of that midfield and try and make it a little bit less important, because Atlanta don't really dominate possession in that space. They're a little more direct anyway. But it's probably one of the biggest question marks we have going into this weekend for any team. And I think we've talked about it a couple times now over the last few shows. I think Keaton Park's the most underrated player in MLS, and his flexibility to be the 6 or be the 8, or at times be pushed into a dual 8, whatever it is, has been massive for this team. And he's normally an innings eater as well. He plays a ton of minutes for them. He's normally the consistent piece that you're piecing things around. So it's a huge question mark for them.
I'm going to go on the Atlanta side for the protagonist. I'm going to say Luis Araujo in this one. I think you could really choose among Araujo, Marcelino Moreno, Barco, or Joseph, among all of those. But to me, it feels like Araujo is the one that's most likely to have that special moment that either opens it up for Joseph and gives him a tap-in, or he does it himself. I don't personally think, given the price tag and the reputation, that there has been enough final product for Araujo yet. And look, it's the David Goss theorem. Give him a year, give him time to adapt. But at his price tag, at his profile, that was a guy that you were saying, we don't actually need that. Like, we shouldn't be expecting it to take a long time. Well, this is that opportunity, and we'll see what happens for him. But look, Atlanta have a ton of attacking talent. In the last couple of weeks, they've done very little with that attacking talent. It's a big question mark as to what it's going to go down in this one. Tactically, what do you see, Charlie? Like, how do you get the most from those 4 players if you are Gonzalo Pineda on the Atlanta side?
Well, you look at Joseph Martinez, right? That's the player who is still trying to find his feet. He was off, for a good amount of time, and for any striker, it's getting into a rhythm. But then it's the fitness aspect, the recovery aspect. Everything takes a little bit longer to recover, to get back into form, and so you want to surround him with the right pieces. And then in the midfield, I think that's where Atlanta have struggled. When you say Rossetto and Sosa, Bello and Lennon, making them understand what's so important as far as like dropping back and condensing the midfield, and then when to use the width and provide width for, whether it's Joseph Martinez or Moreno or Araujo. For me, it's really, I think, dictates how this midfield is able to win the second balls and keep possession. For Atlanta to be dominant, they need to be, playing direct, not really going side to side, because that's what they've done over the course of the season, is playing side to side and not creating enough chances, having shots on goal. When they're efficient and effective, that's when they're at their best. So I think playing at Yankee Stadium, it's got to be one of those instances where you take out Max Morales, you condense the field, you don't allow them to just play high press and dictate, when, you're going to get opportunities and behind. If they can consolidate, I think Atlanta gives themselves the best chance of winning this game.
How about NYCFC's side, Dave?
So I think it's twofold. It's one, whatever it is that happens in midfield, and I think it'll be James Sands, it's dealing with George Bello and that width, because NYCFC, they've given up their most goals from their right side defensively over the course of the year, and a lot of that goes to the injury to the best right back in MLS, who's Swedish, whose name I can't think of right now. Anton Tinnerholm. I kept hearing Terrar. I kept hearing the Icelandic dude. Yeah, I kept hearing the wrong one. Then you've got Gudmundsson on the left back. Okay, fine. So I think a large part of that is to his injury. So I think for NYCFC, it's defensively, how solid can you be along that right wing? How much help can you get for whoever the right back is in this game? If it's James Sands, if it's Gray, if it's another option, whatever that is. And then I think it's, can you pull Miles Robinson out a bit? And Tati's one of the best in the league at that, because he's comfortable everywhere. So he's happy to come wide. He's happy to come deep. And then you can get Thiago Andrade or Rodriguez or whoever's on the wing to make those runs inside. And so if Tati's able to kind of dominate that space and dictate where Miles Robinson or Franco are, then that feels like a spot where NYCFC can really create the chances they want.
All right, we shall see. Now, prediction time. What do you got? Who you taking? I'm going NYCFC at home, personally. I just haven't seen it from Atlanta recently, and I think in Tati and in Maxi, the two more on form and I think more reliable at Yankee Stadium players in this game are those two. So I'm going NYCFC. I think the midfield is a big question mark, no doubt about it. You said it about Parks. He's sort of the linchpin in there. He's the consistent one, but in having James Sands be able to push up into that, that's a really good solution, whether it be as a 3-man back line or into the midfield. So I'm taking NYCFC in this one. I think they move on, and then it's NYCFC Revs, and that's a wonderful matchup.
Yeah, I said the same thing. Yeah, New York City FC at home. I think if this was in Atlanta, things could be drastically different. But at Yankee Stadium, I don't trust the back line outside of Miles Robinson. I think the midfield, I don't trust the midfield for Atlanta United either. So with that being said, players in form, New York City FC moving, I think towards the same goal. I think every player has finally settled in this 4-2-3-1. I think Sands will be naturally set up to succeed, taking over for Keaton Parks because he's played there a bunch. I think New York City FC get it done, and that's the matchup. They have not feared the Revs this year. So that's going to be a very difficult opponent to play when they're in form and rhythm if they get past Atlanta for the Revs.
Do we make it 3 for 3?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you guys. It's just hard to see NYCFC lose at home against an Atlanta team that is not peaking. But we talked about stars. There's a lot of options for Atlanta for someone to step up, but I still have NYCFC.
All right, there it is. That is the first weekend of the 2021 Audi MLS Cup playoffs. Previewed in depth. We'll do this for every single game, every matchup, the entire way through these playoffs. So make sure you tune into that. Subscribe, rate us if you haven't already. By the way, Audi Bracket Challenge. If you don't have that in, we made a bunch of predictions. We all reserve the right, or at least I do, to change said predictions up until the final moment, which you can too. We'll get that Extra Time League out to you as well. I believe there's $10,000 on the line for the winner of this thing, so you might as well take a shot at it. Takes like 5 minutes to click.
I could buy Charlie a whole pair of shoes.
Oh my God, maybe half a pair, depending on the I don't. How many velvet jackets is that, Charlie?
Charlie doesn't pay. That's the thing about being rich is then you stop paying for things. People just give you things.
Yeah.
And Charlie barely works, man. It's just like I never see that dude. I never see him grinding. Wink, wink. All right. One quick note for you: if you are in Canada, Stade Saputo hosting Montreal, Toronto. I believe on Sunday at noon, the Canadian Championship. There's a CCL spot wrapped up in that one. Neither of these teams made the playoffs, so this is their trophy. This is what it's all about. Is there you have a quick take on this for us, Dave? Anything you want to add here, other than there is some fan drama going on, but that it's Montreal, so
it's just it's one of the great rivalries in this in this region, and so it's always good when they play against each other. And as you said, they have a ton to play for. Forge have already qualified for CCL out of CONCACAF League, so this is going to be an opportunity to have 2 Canadian teams in MLS or in CCL, which is pretty cool.
Very cool. All right, let's get in some quick hits before we get out of here. Had some questions about the playoff format. We'll save those. We'll get to those at some point during these playoffs. We don't have time today. The big one here, though, is that Chicago Fire have reportedly hired Ezra Hendrickson as their head coach. I think it's at a contract that's been extended at this time. I mean, it's it's November 18th at 12:23 p.m. Central Time. So I don't know if there's been updates since then. But Ezra, really out of the Siggy Schmidt coaching tree from Seattle, and then for a while there, he was at LA for a year in 2018, I think, and then he's been with Columbus since. But he was one of the finalists. He's one of the names put out there. Charlie, what do you make of this decision for the Fire? They're going with MLS experience and know-how, and giving a guy an opportunity. I think this is his first head coaching job outside of S2.
You know what I think about it? I love it. This is finally, for me, a hire where someone has earned the right to take this position. They've grinded away as an assistant coach. They've played in this league, so they have maybe they haven't had head coaching experience, but they've had coaching experience, and they've been in a locker room. They've been around successful teams. This makes sense in every sort of way. We're so used to getting caught in this wheelhouse of recycling coaches and recycling the same type of I think
once you're a head coach, that's what you're thought of, and so you get back into you get that next opportunity.
And it's the same sort of caliber, and now we're thinking outside the box. So I love this from the Chicago Fire.
Dave?
I agree. I think when you're looking around, you want a guy who's won in this league. He did it as a player and as an assistant coach, but he has that experience with S2 of being a head coach. So he's understood how to run his training sessions, how to be the final voice, as well as watching some of the best in this league do it. He's connected with players. He's a big part of why a Danny Leva and a Josh Atencio and Ethan Dablia were ready to step up to Seattle Sounders. So when you look at Chicago's struggles bringing great players out of their academy, he can help them get better at that. And the other thing that I love about his background, working with Ziggy, coming from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, being in MLS, is one of the things that great teams in MLS do is they don't waste anything. And when you look at Chicago, they've gone so heavy in weird parts of the world. They've only brought in international players, but not from CONCACAF. And it just feels like they're letting opportunities slip. You need to hit on draft picks. You need to hit on homegrowns. You need to find players like Seattle did in the heyday with a Marco Papa or a Leo Gonzalez from around the region. You need to bring in American stars and you need to bring in your DPs. You need to hit everywhere to be successful. And I think you're looking at a coach who understands that, who has a feel for the region, who can work with players from different backgrounds. And as Charlie said, has earned his spot, and no player will question that when he gets there. So I'm really excited if this is the signing for them. And Paul Tenorio had a good thread about this. This itself doesn't mean Chicago's trusting domestic talent, right? It has to be top down in everything, but it's a really good start.
Absolutely, it is. I look, Ezra is a CONCACAF legend. He's a U.S. soccer legend. I mean, across the board. If you look at his career, it's sort of like a bingo of all these like institutions and times within the American soccer landscape. Born in St. Vincent, but really, high school, played here, played at Drake University, Des Moines Menace before MLS started, the New Orleans Riverboat Gamblers, and then into MLS with the Metro Stars, the Galaxy, the Burn, back to the Battery and USL, into DC United for that 2004 season, Chivas USA, the crew, the like staffs he's worked on with Siggy and Caleb, and in 2018 as well with the Galaxy. He's seen it all, and now he gets an opportunity to take what he's seen, to take what he's learned, to take all the skills that he has developed in all these different stops as a player and a coach, as a person as well, because that really matters in these things. Management isn't just expertise in other areas, and apply them. Like, that's what we want. That's what we want to see. I am excited to see if, again, he gets the job. It seems like he will, how he does, and what the next iteration of the Fire looks like. Just quick other news. Charlotte FC announced their home opener, Galaxy, in 2022. That's pretty cool. They're also, per Tom Bogert, going to pay, like, the most money ever for 2 international spots, which that's a red flag for me. I'm just going to throw that out there, that they already need more international spots, and they're going to use their GAM on that. That's a little bit of a red flag.
I disagree so far. As an expansion team, you have an obscene amount. I also think that that's the going price now. It was 175 to 200 in allocation.
Yeah, they got up like 225 recently.
And I think when you look at, and I know people know this better than me, but green cards have slowed down, obviously coming because of political situations as well as COVID. And so I think international roster spots, they're just really expensive right now. And I think Nashville ended up paying $200 to get one back, to get Ake Loba mid-season. So it is what it is. But you brought in a coach from South America and a GM who's an agent from Europe. You're probably going to need some international roster spots.
Yeah, that's a good point. Still, expansion draft, super draft, free agency. By the way, that list is out. Those are all going to be really
the free agency will be really interesting.
There are a lot of players in that because the
we got stuff to talk about.
We do, and where are we going to fit it? We can on this show. That's it for us. Enjoy the playoffs.
It'll be a
weekend.
tight one,
Remember,
maybe. We'll hit everything in 2 minutes. We'll get a buzzer.
Bam, 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 bam. We do need a buzzer. We probably do. MLSsoccer.com, the MLS app for Saturday's action. Philly, New York at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. The pregame show on Twitter Spaces starts at 2. You can also get that on the stream. We'll be live on Twitter Spaces all day on my handle. KC Vancouver, the second game of that day, also MLSsoccer.com and the MLS app. Of course, both those are on Univision and TUDN. Doubleheader again Sunday, NYCFC Atlanta on ABC, Portland, Minnesota on ESPN, and then we're on to Tuesday, and then Thursday, and then through the rest of the playoffs. It's 13 games, 1 champion. It's the best time of year. Enjoy it, everybody. We'll see you on Monday. So you made it through and even enjoyed more than an hour of MLS talk with extra time driven by Continental Tire. That means that you should go subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to them, and you should also check out more extra time on the MLS YouTube channel. If I can point right there, click right there, and subscribe to the MLS channel right here. Have a great day, folks.